the recording?
I am now, thank you. And we're recording the full video, so you'll see all, whoever watches this, they'll see the video, which would be pretty cool. Anyway, I'm complete.
Wonderful. So let us begin. Well, welcome again to this gathering, let's use the word gathering, of open hearts. And we're going to be looking at the art of taking heart. And just be in our hearts today. As we share in all our interactions, we're going to be in our hearts. I'd like to just use the intro that we sent out in Glenn's email, the initial one, and I'd like to just read that because it really sums up the nature of our interaction and participation today. So if I may. Facilitating is an art that speaks the language of the heart. The role of a facilitator in a course of love. I'm going to have to move my writing thing here so I can read just a little better. So, as we go into this, I'll start again. As we go into this, this is new for everybody and new for me as well. So let's just begin again. The role of a facilitator is to make easy the way of the heart. In the art of taking heart, facilitating leads out the inner wisdom of our hearts and brings its ever-abiding awareness to our embrace of a course of love, its source, and each other in joyful dialogue. In this interactive gathering, we will demonstrate the art of the heart, of facilitating through our own interaction with the course content and its application to the living of our lives. So what we will be doing here is we will be having a demonstration session of the art of facilitating and the components, the tools, if you want, of that art, just like an artist needs paint and a canvas. So one of the things we do when we start a facilitating class is to create a field, a loving field for our interaction. And then we connect with the content. And then after that connection, we share. We share with one another and bring our experiences to bear on what we've talked about, to make it our own, to make it part of our living. So I'd like to begin with this idea of creating this energetic field. And often, I'm sure all of you who have led classes do something very similar. You probably read maybe a selection from the course to get started. Or someone brings in a reading from another source that is just perfect. In our a combined course of Course in Miracles and Course of Love, we start with the Lord's Prayer by Andrea Botticelli. And so that creates that loving field so that we are ready to embrace each other and the content of the course. So that's what I'm going to do today, is we are going to first create the field, and then which will lead us into the content, and then we'll have a discussion of how we connected with the Course and its promise for the living of our lives. So let's center into our hearts and let these words touch your heart. As we drop into our hearts, I'm going to share a poem that came from the Well of Spirit. And it's about the topic of taking heart. And it is, I take heart from all things. Mountains, they inspire me and humble me as well. Trees teach and the earth sings of the wisdom that's inside me. It's my own story to tell, a giving from the heart that becomes our life's art, and being is our poetry. Now let's make that just a little more inclusive. It's a giving, well, excuse me, it is our story to tell. It is a giving of our hearts that is our life's art. And being is our poetry. It is this giving that makes our living, our being, the living of our life within the being of the one self of love. So now we're going to go into the Course of Love and read a selection on taking heart. And this is in chapter 3 of A Course of Love, and it is on page 29. If you have your books, and if you'd like to read, just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Joe will call on you to read a selection. And so we're going to go deeper into our hearts, this giving that is our living.
So what paragraph are we starting?
Okay, we're starting with 3.13. It's actually on the bottom of 28. And we're going to be reading from there until 3.18. And then we'll stop for discussion. Okay, so.
Who would like to read? Susan.
Okay, yeah, you call on them, Joe, okay?
Susan?
Yes, and we're read a paragraph at a time. Okay, so Susan will read the first paragraph.
Okay. 3.13.
Yes.
You have not given up the idea that you are in control of what you learn, nor have you accepted that you can learn in a way you have not learned before. Thus, we move from head to heart to take advantage of your concepts of the heart, the concepts much more in line with learning that is not of this world. I'm complete.
Next reader, Steve.
These words of love do not enter your body through your eyes and take up residence in your brain. They're to be distilled into a language that you can understand. As you read, be aware of your heart, for this is where this learning enters and will stay. Your heart is now your eyes and ears. Your mind can remain within your concept of the brain, for we bypass it now and send it no information to process, no data for it to compute. The only change in thinking you are asked to make is to realize that you do not need it.
Next.
Looking for a volunteer? I'm
Okay.
happy.
Good.
I'll read.
Okay, okay, good, Jim.
3.15.
Yes.
What this will mean to you goes far beyond the learning of this course. One such concept, given up and not replaced, will free you beyond your deepest imaginings and free your sisters and brothers as well. Once one such concept is felt, others follow quickly. But none is more entrenched than this one, the one we begin today to let fall away.
Okay, next.
I could read.
Okay.
16. You who have been unable to separate mind from body, brain from head, and intelligence from knowledge, take heart. We give up trying. We simply learn in a new way, and in our learning, realize that our light shines from within our heart, our altar to the Lord. Here the Christ abides, and here we concentrate our energies and our learning, soon to learn that what we would know cannot be computed in the data banks of an overworked and overtrusted brain. Mind we cannot separate from where we believe it to be. Please.
Thank you. Barbara? And then Judy.
Our hearts, in contrast, go out to the world, to the suffering, to the weak of body and of mind. Our hearts are not so easily contained within the casing of our flesh and bone. Our hearts take wing with joy and break with sadness. Not so the brain that keeps on registering it all, a silent observer, soon to tell you that the feelings of your heart were foolishness indeed. It is to our hearts that we appeal for guidance, for there resides the one who truly guides. Complete.
Thank you. Judy? You're muted.
I forgot to unmute, forgive me. You who think this idea is rife with sentiment, sure to lead you to abandoning logic, and thereafter certainly to cause your ruin, I say to you again, take heart. Such foolishness as your heart's desires will save you now. Remember, it is your heart that yearns for home, your heart that yearns for love remembered, your heart that leads the way that, should you follow, will set you certainly on the path for home. Complete.
Complete. There we are. And so, again, the role of the facilitator, and we are facilitators of ourselves, so is to lead out that inner wisdom that lies within. And we've just, through these words, Jesus often says, let these words touch your heart. And through these words, we've connected with that inner wisdom. So the question I often like to ask is, what is your response? What is rising within you now from deep within the well of spirit?
This is Donna. Can I say something?
Please.
Well, one of the things that just prominently comes up for me through the entire reading is the fact that this is where the rubber meets the road. And we are moving to the heart instead of thinking. We are making that movement. This clearly allows us to feel that intensely as the words unfold here, that you become aware of your heart and you do suspend your thinking.
Yes.
So that's what's coming up for me with all the words that were read. And I'm
Thank you.
finished.
And anyone else with a response? Let's see.
Barbara?
Yes. For me, when I read anything in this book, there's something that wells up inside of me that makes me feel instead of think. And just now, reading this again gives me that feeling that this is what it's about. It's really a deep, deep feeling. And it has nothing to do with the mind. And you get out of your own way and you allow, like Jesus said, the words to give you the comfort and the truth. So that's what I think. Thank you. Complete.
Well, I'm going to jump in and share honestly where I'm at. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Being kind of responsible for making this Zoom thing work amongst 19 different screens and concerned about echo and crosstalk and muting and unmuting. And it's just like, that's one feeling. But the other feeling is just amazingly excited that I think we're trailblazing here. You know, how do we bring so many people together from literally around the world and share with each other the art of facilitating so that we can individually contribute to this movement? I'm complete.
I think Jim had something. Jim?
I do.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. The course of love I came to the Course of Love, guided to it after 12 years of Course in Miracles. And at a certain point with Course in Miracles, it seemed like we were stuck in kind of an intellectual, which I thought was an ego. So I really studied the Course of Miracles hard, and I really tried hard to understand it. And I think I got the basics pretty well in 12 years. When I was introduced to the Course of Love, one of the first things that Mari said was, in her Batgap interview, was that she thought that the Course in Miracles had gotten the idea of this world being an illusion. She thought that it had gotten, Course in Miracles had gotten it wrong. And I just stood up and cheered, because there's so many things that, you know, if this world is just an illusion, what are we doing here? You know, what are we learning? And that's when I started to move all that intellectual stuff into the heart. So I really feel that the Course of Love is responsible for me moving more and more into my heart. The heart knows, the mind questions. Okay, everyone knows that. I've moved so far out of the mind. I still have that intellectual tendency. And in my group, we read and we talk, and we also talk about how it applies to our lives. So conversations can get off topic for a little while, but it's about how they apply the Course to their lives. So I let the conversation go, and then we'll bring it back to the reading. But I've noticed just this huge shift from the intellect, from the mind, into the heart. And now there's this piece there that the heart just goes, yeah, I know everything will be okay. The mind is going to be questioning, well, what about this? What about that? You know, it's kind of hyperactive. And that's gone now. It's just gone. The heart is like a calm place where I just know things are fine. And I just allow things to come through the heart first. And I think that's what he's talking about when he says wholeheartedness. So that's what I'll say over. Over.
Thank you.
Mark? You're muted.
Yeah, what comes up for me, from my heart, is I'd like to get to know the people I'm looking at on the screen here. I know we have one self, one being, but we're all unique expressions of that one being. And anyway, I don't know how that would come about, but I thought maybe if we could take just a moment at some point and get to know each other, who we are. I'm complete. Thanks.
And yes, we will interact more after this session that we're doing, this example session. So yes, Mark, that's very important. And so Donna, I guess, Donna.
I'm sorry, did you want me to comment now?
No, oh,
Or are there more than one?
No, I just saw the screen flashing. There's a lot we need to get used to happening here, but oh, Joe was right. We are pioneers of the new. We're creating the new right here, and it is most exciting. And we have a comment coming up here.
Just if I may, real briefly, I've seen Lori Lavallee and I've also seen Meg raising their hands regularly for some time now. They're waiting. I bet they're eager to get in touch. So I'll say that at this point, but I just am continuously grateful for extending this group, this community, those who are pursuing this journey. And I'll say briefly that in the summer of 2014, I'm walking through a field and I'm saying, I'm wondering if there's something beyond the Course in Miracles. And about 6 months later, one who'd been studying with the Course with me for years had come into the Course of Love. And so from February 2015 on, I think there's been a day I have not been fooling around with this material and just celebrating each time. Thanks. Complete for now. I think Lori's waiting, so is Meg.
So who's next? Is it Lori or Meg?
Susan's raising her hand.
Go ahead, Meg.
Well, I was just pondering a couple of the passages in this reading. The first one that really stood out for me, I guess, is we give up trying in paragraph 16. And I too had studied the Course in Miracles for a long time, and it required a lot of effort. And I noticed, especially as I'm getting older, my tolerance for trying, striving and effort and straining is getting lower and lower. And it just seems like everything is telling me to give up trying, not only this course, but my whole life.
Yes.
It's just exhausting. You just, and then there's all the motivation that's behind trying that is so ego related, and just all these ambitions and thoughts of reward that never really pan out. So there's lots of reasons to give up trying. I mean, besides it just doesn't work. And then the other passage is in paragraph 14, your heart is now your eyes and ears. I mean, in studying A Course in Miracles, I read it with my eyes, I listened to it with my ears, so that all that effort was channeled through these sensory organs. Well, now the heart is a new kind of sensory organ. So there's listening with the heart, there's feeling with the heart, it's just being in that space of taking in what's being given and receiving, just to kind of diminish my focus on eyes and ears and what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and just, experiencing or feeling or sensing through that presence of heart. Anyways, it's just such a big shift from all the learning of effort and, using our eyes and ears. It's just a completely different way of discovering and realizing what this course is all about. I'm complete.
Thank you so much. Is there another response?
Okay, now I'll go.
Okay.
First off, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Joan. J and J here, Joe and Joan. Thank you for your work to put this together. I know it's been a while in coming, and I'm just so glad to be a part of it. Second, I have three things I wanted to say. That was one. Second is one thing I was really hoping for is that maybe after we're done reading this passage that we really can take a few minutes to do a joining for this particular circle. I find that it brings us more into a centered space with all of us. We're creating an energy of us together. And you had suggested that too, Joan, that we would take a few minutes for quiet time and to come together. That I would still like us to do that if we can.
Good.
And the third thing I wanted to share is that I saw this not too long ago, recently actually. I came to Course in Love or Course of Love just a few years ago, and mostly it was because of Joan right there. She started it. She was the pioneer in Sedona here, and she started reading it and then decided we've got to include this in our Course in Miracle meetings, and so she did. And so we had Course in Miracle, Course of Love meetings that were integrated. Take a piece out of the Course of Miracles, connect it to a piece from the Course of Love, and help, and both of them help each other illuminate the other. And that's how I see, or that's why I see one of the enormous benefits of this is I certainly have to put both the mental and the heart-centered spaces together. I don't see it in any way, shape, or form as an either or. It's, oh, I'm doing the Course of Miracles or I'm doing Course of Love. That makes no sense to me. What makes sense is we're coming to wholeness within ourselves, which means we need to put all of the pieces back in, bring all of our parts of our being back into wholeness. So we need our minds to be whole. We need our hearts to be whole. We need our spirits to be whole. We even need our bodies to be whole. It's wholeness on every level. So I just wanted to make that comment, and also that I'm really glad to be here today. Thank you.
And I think Judy, did you have something? Yes.
I do. Let me just say that I'm newer than a lot of you to A Course of Love. I began facilitating a year ago, January. And of course, was not new to Course of Love at that time, but in facilitating. But I wanted to share that.
Judy, can you speak up, please?
Yes, sorry, sometimes my voice is too soft. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. The paragraph that I read, which was 318, really spoke to me. The sentence, "Such foolishness as your heart's desire will save you now."
Yes.
For a couple of reasons. One, I just wanted to say that for me, A Course in Miracles was and is a heart-centered experience. It spoke to my heart from the moment I was introduced to it. And unlike some of my friends and cohorts who at certain passages wanted to throw the book into the trash or out the window or whatever. Some of those passages were exactly the ones that just went straight in. And I was and continue to be ecstatic about it. Someone, I forget who it was, said, I think it was you, Meg, or someone said, there must be something else after A Course in Miracles. And I know when I read the end of the text, and it said, this isn't a beginning, but an end. This isn't an end, but a beginning. I always knew that there was going to be something else. There is always something bigger, something more, something bigger is not the right word, but there's always room for in my experience, for greater, more expanded understanding and depth. And so when I came to finally open A Course of Love, which I had for 3 years before I actually started opening it and reading it, again, my heart was joyful, and it continues to be. And I think the two, for me, because I also facilitate A Course in Miracles, and the group that I'm facilitating now had been doing A Course in Miracles together for a number of years. And I've seen them grow from that and continue to evolve beautifully with A Course of Love. And we have some new people that have joined us that never did A Course in Miracles, and they're doing just fine. The only other thing I wanted to say was just how much I appreciate this this gathering, this opportunity to bring people together. It's great. Thank you. I'm complete.
And do we have any others that wanted to speak before? We'll have a closure to our example session in just a few minutes, just like we would close any other, our land-based classes. But did anyone else that we missed who wanted to say anything?
Susan has her hand up.
Okay, Susan.
I was just going to make a suggestion. In other groups that I've been in, instead of people sitting there with their hand up, if we use the chat function to indicate when we want to speak, then either Joe or Joan, whoever's moderating it, can look at the chat and see who has brought up a question, or who, maybe we could have a little code like just the letter R. If you want to raise your hand, you just type that in, and then you can see in order who wants to speak. That's just something that might make things go a little more smoothly.
Okay, Joe, do you have a comment to that? Will that work?
We can try that, sure.
Okay.
I'm complete.
Good, thank you. And we're going to talk a little bit more after this demonstration session about those techniques to make the our gathering go smoother. Yes, thank you. Okay. So with any meeting, generally we bring it to a close. And of course, with our Terra-based groups, we can join in a circle. We can connect hands. And we can kind of connect hands, I guess, through our interactions. But we're just going to connect our hearts. And so, but let's have generally it's an inspirational reading. It may be from a prayer from the Course in Miracles, and even in the Course in Love, sometimes one of the part 2 lessons are perfect because they just, again, ground you in your heart. And Course of Love has beautiful passages, and the one I'm going to read today is part 3 from the appendix, and where Jesus is talking to us, and he's telling us to gather in ever widening configurations. Well, that's what we're doing here. Isn't it perfect? So I'm going to go to the appendix. If your book is right there, you can follow along. But this is the very last page in the appendix. And I'm going to start with paragraph A48. Here we go. Go forth, not as completed works of art, but as permeable energy, ever changing, ever creating, ever new. Go forth with openness for revelation to happen through you and through all you encounter. Go forth joyously on this adventure of discovery. Be ever new, ever one, ever the beloved. Bring your voice to this continuing dialogue. This is all that is asked of you. This is the gift you have been given and the gift you bring the world. Your own voice, the voice of who you are. This is not a voice of separation or of the separated self, but a voice of union and of the one self. It is how union is expressed and made recognizable in form. It is what will usher in the new and change the world. It cannot be accomplished without you, without your ability to stand in unity and relationship as the accomplished. Brothers and sisters, you are the accomplished.
I love that.
So there we are. We've gone through just a brief demonstration session. Yeah, just a brief demonstration session. And so now we're going to open up the discussion to talk about, well, just this particular path that I used for conducting this meeting. And it is just one of many ways that work. This comes from my heart, and your hearts are open too, to create, to always create the new. So is there a response to the ending, to the closure of our meeting, so that we can exit our meeting with joyful hearts? Yes.
Well, just to be clear, we're not saying the end of this meeting right now. We're saying the end of the kind of the exhibition part of this meeting. Yes. But what struck me in that reading is something that I've kind of been obsessed on for quite a while. And I think it is the new classroom. I think it is where learning moves to, and it is dialogue. It is, for me, and I think as facilitators, as a facilitator, what I'm most interested in is observing the spirit that lives in the collective web of relationship. Wake up and start letting the unknown become known. Because I think it's in dialogue. It's in that giving and receiving within a collective where creativity, inspiration, enthusiasm, new knowledge, I think that is our new classroom, to go beyond the book and inner collective dialogue. So I'm just really excited about this stuff. I'm complete.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's just look a little bit at the potential structures of the of leading a class, or it seems like we don't have a lot of new facilitators, pretty experienced facilitators, I think. But at any rate, let's talk about just conducting a class or a session. I have to, forgive me for the word class, I'm a teacher, and so it comes up naturally. Yeah, so Well, let's start with the structure of this one. Okay, we said we created a field. Any comments from all of you on the creating a field? Creating that energetic field for that of receptivity for those in our groups that are receiving. What techniques might you use? Are we having trouble with the chat function? I see some there.
Well, it relates to, the mechanism of using Zoom. So let me just make a brief comment because this might apply to others. So Paris asked me how she can see everybody. And in your Zoom window, in the upper right-hand corner, you can see either speaker view or gallery view. And then it'll toggle back and forth between showing just the person who's speaking or showing us all at one time. So that's, I apologize for getting technical there, but I just wanted to raise that issue. And Meg and John said, hand up. Meg, speak.
Yeah, like, I didn't know quite how to use the chat. Oh, I was just going to speak to the question about how to set the tone, or I'm not sure about the words you used, but I know in our groups, we what I'll do is I lead a meditation that is based on the previous chapter that we read, in the last group, and it'll use some of the passage, the sentences that I've highlighted. And so it'll just kind of capture the flavor, and I'll just read it in a real slow way with pauses so that there's time to go deep. And that it seems to really serve the group well, I think, to bring everybody to the point in our reading where we're starting in the group that day. And I've gotten some positive feedback about it. So just wanted to share that as an idea. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. That's very important that we, again, in creating a field is the word I use, but it's all about receptivity. We're all first receivers. And so we create a climate, a loving space, spaciousness, as Jesus would call it. And so, and that, again, it's a heart opener. It's a heart opener. And meditations, poetry, songs, music. We can't really use music here to begin our classes, our group sessions, but because of the recording, we are recording this. And so we might run into copyright issues or that kind of thing, but whatever touches your heart, that's what's important. This giving from the heart. And yes, Joe.
One thing that I found to be very helpful in many of our groups is to start off with some silence. Just start off with, even just a minute or two of silence. And I think it changes how people share. And I also think it seems to change the group's tolerance for quiet. The group becomes more tolerant of quiet between the shares. And I think that's a good thing. So that's one idea, is starting off with some quiet time and ending with some quiet time. I'm complete.
Yes. Anyone else?
Can you hear me? Anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Paris Charbois. We usually start out with a meditation for 5 minutes. It's long enough to really create that space for listening and opening. and to let go of all the chatter from the outside world and get ready. Because there's always a big feeling that we leave with, and starting with that opening, it seems to be really important. I'm anxious to hear other people's ideas and things that work really well, because I think it will enrich our program. And I've hesitated calling myself a facilitator, because I feel like it's a joining and nobody's in charge. And so I try to put that forth in every meeting. Nobody's in charge, that everyone's on equal footing. And, we're just at different stages of sharing, that's all. The book has so much to direct and guide us with that I don't need to explain what it said. And so we just have our own input.
Yes, and wonderful. One of the things we can do as we go along with this group, if there are meditations or techniques that you would like to share, we can share them with one another. If you're willing to have your email shared with another, we can continue to benefit from each other's experience and share those to enrich, again, our own gatherings. Nicole.
Can I say something here? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Great. So, look, I'll just share with you guys how I run my group. It just seems so completely different to what I'm hearing here. So, like when we read the course, it's like we read one sentence and then it comes like this sound comes out. It's just so dislodges the mind that the capacity to even speak becomes impossible. That like Barbara said at the beginning, they say it's all about feeling. I mean, the heart agent for communication is feeling. But most of our training to feel was just being stuck in the mind. And I'm still, for my liking, I'm still hearing this chatter and techniques, but it's really like, it's about dropping into like, what is the feeling right now? And are we feeling each other? To me, it feels like a discussion that's like here from the mind to mind. I don't find any heart anywhere as yet. And I like that kind of like, I don't feel anything here. It feels to me annoying. It's like it's another discussion. It's another dry group. And my light mind was just, where is the fucking heart? Where is that radiance, freaking radiance that oozes the out, like you turn like a sun that shines in every direction. And that's where the meeting begins. Like, I am the light of the world. Guys, let's join in that. Otherwise, we're just talking semantics. So the Course says that, and and the Course of Love says this. It's about how does it make us feel. And I don't think until we begin to really share how we truly feeling, not just thinking what we're feeling, but truly feeling each other, the communication of the heart is disabled. It's just like that mic that is off. Like we all muted. To feel, it feels like the whole freaking thing is muted.
I agree. Totally.
You know what I'm talking about? Like to feel, it feels like a thick muck. And it's, I don't know if you see me judgmental, but it's just like my patient wants to go like, I don't feel the light. I don't feel the light. I want to feel the light, guys. I want to meet you all. You don't even have to tell me your name. Like it's got to be felt experience, got to be felt way deeper than and how about this, how about that, and when I did the Course in Miracles and we did this and we did that. No, like Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, says, forget the questions, forget the answers. The only thing that's necessary is experience, and in that we join. Otherwise, just a chat. This is another chat room. Anyway, I just said my piece. So I just wanted to say that when we read, it's a sentence and we basically vanish into that sentence. And we let that integrate in a feeling body. It has to integrate in a feeling body. We can't even move to the next sentence. So when I just hear this, like just reading, bang, I don't know. To me, it doesn't mean anything. It's just like words.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, Donna has her hand raised.
Okay, Donna?
And you need to unmute. Donna, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. I'm still playing around with everything here. I'm sorry. I'm still trying to catch up in here. But I appreciate what he, the fellow that just spoke before me, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for his name. I appreciate what he said. And you know, what came up for me in that is it's pretty profound when you're with the group. It starts before anything in the class with, I hug everyone as they come in. And so I can kind of relate to what he's saying. There is that personal contact piece where you make direct eye contact and you do have that loving spirit about you. And as everyone's coming in, they feel the same way. And so it makes it easy. And it almost becomes, it is channeling, is what happens during the course of the sessions that we're having together. And it is about the dialogue. That is all it's about. The book merely facilitates this dialogue, doesn't it, for us to be able to expand into the awareness of our heart and to function from that space and be in that space together. And so I get what he's saying. There's some benignness to looking at each other on a screen, but it's the best we can do, sort of like our language. It's labels, and using labels for feelings gets difficult sometimes, just like having feelings and sharing those, knowing we're all one in union here, even though we can't touch each other. So I kind of get that. I understand that. I'm sure we all feel that to a certain degree. And you don't have that simply warm fuzzy that you do when you're in your group with the actual physical body and then sharing beyond that. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying we can. I think we can, even so we are on a screen. Because if we all go in, we go deep enough to tap into the internet of the earth where we all join as one, where is that feeling, you know, it's all magnetic. And I don't think time and distance and screen means nothing. It's about joining in a deep feeling, because that is the dialogue. For me, this is talking, this is chatting, but when the feelings join, then is the dialogue begins.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just a chat room. It's a chat room of exchanging information, but when we meet and our hearts can't meet when the feelings are cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Impossible, just doesn't work.
You know, this is
just loses the field. The field is not plugged in.
This is the first time I've done Zoom ever, and so it feels very foreign to me. But I think, Cole, you who I've met on Facebook for ACOL, and you're an icebreaker. And it's so cool to have you as a catalyst for all of this for me for my first time here. And I can see this whole, all of these boxes, and I just want them to have these pixelized gradations and merging together. instead of being separate like this. And it's hard to orchestrate it. And I don't know I know Joe's working hard behind the scenes to probably fix that and get us put together so it's more like music. But I don't know how that works, but it feels like we're creating the new. I'm looking at it positive, even though it feels very clumsy to me right now. We're creating the new way of communicating beyond those little boxes, beyond those little pictures of our bodies, so to say. And behind that is great power and limitless capabilities. And we just need to figure out how to make that work to communicate for us, because I want to know each one of you.
I have a suggestion. Could we just go around the room and introduce ourselves and say what city we're from, and also a little bit about our groups, you know, how long we've been running the group and that kind of thing?
The answer is yes, and I think we have another comment over here, but I want to say right now we are sharing from our hearts. This is so beautiful that what has just happened here. And we can do this more and more. And we just have to feel our way with this new interaction, as Paris just said. It's a new style of interacting. But as long as we come from our hearts, it's going to work. And your suggestions are important. And so after the session, if you want to email me or Joe, please do so. And then we can start sharing this in our next meeting. The flow of our sessions, our gatherings are going to come from you, from your hearts. And so thank you, Carl. Thank you. This is a beautiful sharing. This is where we want to go. We don't necessarily all agree as to the style yet, but it's okay. We're going to come from our hearts. We're going to get to know one another. And I love the suggestion that was just made that we will, go around and just get to know one another. And I think, Laurie, you might have had something to say, right? Did I see it? I didn't see a hand. Okay.
Lynn has her hand up.
Lynn's up.
All right, Lynn.
Yeah, hi. What I was feeling into all this is that I thought maybe we could take a few minutes of silence and maybe invite Jesus into the collective energy field here, the deep Christ self from the heart, and just get into this amplified energy field of togetherness. I think what's important for me is to have moments of silence and to not be uncomfortable with silence. Every minute doesn't have to be filled with someone talking. This is something we've used lately in our group on Thursday, is that after someone speaks, we honor that person's sharing by taking a few moments to pause. We've also had times where we go 5 minutes maybe completely without speaking, and you can just feel this amplified energy field of just connection, and you can feel like a buzzing or a transmittal of something that's occurring within the collective spirit in the group. But it's about dropping into that heart space, like what Cole was saying, and feeling that connection, that deep prayer of the heart is extended to everyone. And I really think that silence is a huge component of this. Every second does not have to be filled with someone talking. And I would like to, if it's okay, to take a few moments to maybe just, silence and wait to. Is someone else speaking?
We're getting echo.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, yeah, I just thought maybe a few moments of silence and we can invite Jesus in to the space.
I just want to second what Lynn is saying. In our local group here, we spend about 2/3 of the time in silence, saying very little. And that feeling of boundarylessness and one being, not separate beings on the screen, but one being, is amplified enormously. So I concur with what Lynn has just said.
Lynn, would you be willing to lead us into that silence in just a few moments? But Rodriguez would like to say something first.
I just want to follow up on Cole's comment. Thank you, Cole. You have a valid point, but I would like to say that I have heard so many times in Zoom groups, people coming up with suggestions. We should do like this, we should do like that. Why don't we share experiences? Why don't we comment on this? And I understand that the best way for us to influence or to bring a new energy, a new direction into a group is by being ourselves an example of what we want to see. So if we want to see more experiences being shared, why don't we start from our own? As we start bringing our energy to the group follows the energy. So when we want the group to be more warm-hearted or more heart-centered, why don't we start from ourselves, being heart-centered? As we speak from our heart, without judgment, as we allow people to be who they are, to express in whatever way they are comfortable with, without labeling them, it's like this, it's like that, this person is too much on his or her mind, this talk is too much like this or that. So instead of making this kind of comments, why don't we bring the energy we want to see in the group? Because that is how life is. We cannot sit in a dining table and tell our relatives, you shouldn't be like this or you shouldn't be like that. Let us be silent. I don't like too much talk. Let us open our hearts. You are too much on your minds. Of course, this is not going to bring about the kind of energy we want to experience in that moment. So I have been having this experience for many months of hearing people talking in the Zoom groups about their ideas. And I just want to conclude that perhaps the best way to bring about this kind of things we want to see outside is to bring them from inside first and let the group follow that energy we are bringing in. I'm complete.
Thank you. That is so beautiful. And so as we conclude our session here, we have about a little less than a half an hour. So perhaps we can combine some of the comments that have been made. And let's go and definitely introduce ourselves. We can allow a little space before we do that. And we'll just start going around. Joe, a question. Are we all in the same order on the screen?
Everybody sees a different order.
Oh, okay. All right. So how about if we go with the top row and let everyone share, this sharing again from the heart of being what we want to see in the world.
Lori has her hand up.
Joan, let's do our couple minutes of joining before we do any sharing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to lead that, Lori? Anything we need to say, or just to be 2 minutes of silence?
Yeah, I can lead it. That's fine. So everybody mute your microphones if they aren't, so we don't get any feedback. And let's just all close our eyes. Take a couple of deep breaths. Relax the body. Let the tension go. Relax the heart. See if you can come to a place of calm, relaxed, emotional center. And then take a minute to relax your mind. Let go of all the thoughts you've had up until now. Let go of the day that you've had before this group. Let go of the thoughts you've thought during this group. Let go of the future thoughts you're thinking about what you're going to do tonight or tomorrow or 20 years from now. Just let your mind relax. And then go to the light within you. Take another deep breath and just feel the light that you are. Feel your own being, your own self. And just relax any tension you feel anywhere within your being to the best of your ability. And now take a few more deep breaths, and I'm going to be quiet for a minute, but let's give ourselves a minute or two to just relax into that space where we can be open and comfortable. And then in a minute or two, I'll bring us back and I'll talk one more time. Okay, now from the space of more relaxed, more open, more receptivity, join with the others in the group. And as we share for the next little bit of time, we're joining together in the oneness with the oneness that we are. So just allow yourself to be open to truly joining with your brothers within this circle. And when you feel comfortable, open your eyes and rejoin the group. Okay, maybe one more good deep breath to just stay relaxed. And thank you for the joining. feels different already. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you. So, I see smiles now. I see smiles on the faces. So we will begin next time with something similar. So we'll connect deeper into our hearts right away and go from there. Now, who would, let's get to know each other better. So who would like to share where they're from, what they do? Yes, Corinne.
Hi, everybody. I'm Corinne, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I've been part of a study group in the Course in Miracles since 1997 and facilitating for most of that time. And the Course of Love, I read that back 3 years ago, but our study group now in January started doing both the text together. And Joan and I were in contact with each other in January after I heard on the Course in Love conference about the group in Sedona that is doing the combination of the two. So my intent in coming into this group is not only to have the wonderful opportunity to meet other facilitators, but to learn any tips that you have if you're integrating both of the curriculums together, and just to share from the heart on anything that would be truly helpful to anyone as we gather during the times that we get together. So thank you, Joan and Joe, and I look forward to learning more from all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mark or Steve? It's Steve, isn't it? Steve, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I had to get my mouse over to the mute button.
Yes.
I'm Steve Huck, and I live in San Antonio, Texas. I participate in Joe's group every other Monday evening, and in Rose's Christ Zoom group on every Thursday. And you know, there was discussion back in at the conference about, you know, Zoom groups, and all of them recognized how joining was evident in every one of their meetings. It might take a little bit of time, but it is, you know, it's truly felt when the group comes together. So, you know, whether we're you know, on Terra, as you said, Joan, or in the ether going through the internet, the joining is there. It's where our heart places it. But, I facilitate a group at the Unity Church here in San Antonio on Thursday nights, and then another group on Sunday mornings with our Miracle Study Center group. And came to A Course in Miracles in 2014 after many years studying in a different path. And then in 2017, mid-2017, I got introduced to A Course of Love. And that's kind of like the capstone of all of it. That book truly speaks to me. And it's just been an extraordinary journey. Meeting the people I've met, the dialogues we've participated in, all of it. Complete.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, someone who hasn't shared today.
I could say something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name's Duncan. I'm from the UK. I'm in, so it's sort of after midnight here. I'm fairly, I knew about the Course in Miracles way back in 1975, I think, when I first met it. But I never felt comfortable with it because it seemed to exclude this dimension in an embodied way. And so I took many other paths And when I finally got to read The Course of Love, I felt completely resonant with my feeling for what Christ is, what the second coming is, what our true nature is. And I've been running groups on presence, on what I call presence, or the presence, for many, many years, which just work phenomenologically out of directly experiencing the living presence between us and its intelligence and the love that comes if we just live in that together. But I'm curious in this group to learn how people, because I'd quite like to start a group here. I don't know anyone who's read who knows about this course in Britain. I don't know anyone here. And I'd quite like to start some way of introducing it to people, but I'm not sure whether to go through in a sort of sequential process with people or what. I was interested in what people have done in other parts of the world with that. So anyway, that's a brief sharing from me, and I'll need to go to bed soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Duncan, very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, I have a quick share. I know I've talked a lot, but I just want to make a comment about Zoom gatherings as compared and contrasted to in-person gatherings. Because I've come to see them not as one better or worse than the other, they're just different. And in some ways, I think the opportunity to connect deeply on a purely spiritual level, and this is maybe theory at this point, is greater in Zoom, because I don't have physical bodies to distract me. And I get to be the observer and the observed. And so what I'm finding is my ability to go deep into dialogue in Zoom groups complements my ability to go deep into dialogue in in-person groups. And the in-person experience deepens my ability to go deep in Zoom groups. So I just see these as complementary. And then brief introduction, I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've studied the Course of Miracles for probably 15 years and the Course of Love since the spring of 2014. And been running in-person and Zoom groups. And I'm just passionate about Zoom because I think it's a way for us to build this movement. And then maybe to answer Duncan's question, I don't know. In the US, I think there's an affinity between unity churches and the two courses. So that's my experience in the US. I don't know what it would be like in the UK to connect with others. I'm complete.
Lynn Kid, and then
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with what Duncan was saying, that he said he doesn't know anyone in the UK that would be interested. Well, with the beauty of the Zoom group, it's pan global. It's all over the world. And I feel like my experience with it is that when you have a group, every group has a magnitude or a frequency, and once you create the group, there are going to be people who come. Everyone is attracted to that frequency or magnitude, and so if you do create the group, it's part of the creative experience. And the beauty of Zoom is, you can connect with someone all over the world in a matter of seconds. You just click on a link, and you have all these, beautiful beings all over the world just connected and joined. So I would just say, if you're really passionate about it, if it really feels in your heart to feel guided to do that, I would say don't hesitate. Just start your own group, and whether it's in person or Zoom, and people will come. They'll show up. Thank you. I'm complete.
I'd like to go next. I'm Jim Caruth. We have a group in Pasadena, California, and we've been going for a year and a half. Tonight is a big night for us. It's called the Reboot, because we're starting the book over. We did a big promotional with the church. We're holding it at the highest center for spiritual living here in Pasadena, and they've been very supportive of us. I think it's important if you have a church group that you're meeting at to get the congregation involved as much as possible and not just use their facilities and use their room to meet in. That was kind of a big lesson for me. I had to get involved with the church a little bit and get them to know me. And our group is small because I don't think that many people know about Course of Love yet. But because it's small, it's very intimate. We've gotten to know each other over the last year and a half very intimately. By the way, Duncan, there's a message here from Glenn Hoverman. I'd like to introduce you to the part of the AACOL website that has a map for in-person local-based groups and a listing of telephone and Zoom groups. Do you have your chat window up, Duncan? Can you see that message to you? Okay, good. All right. Anyway, so after a year and a half, we finally got through the entire book, and I thought, I call it the reboot because we're starting the book over, and that would be a great time to get people from the congregation of Ahaya interested. We put flyers up in different places. I asked people in the group to put flyers up, and I also sent out email blasts. So you have to do a little advertising. I think it's just the book itself is not nearly as well known as A Course in Miracles. By the way, I know I said some disparaging remarks about A Course in Miracles earlier. I'm still in A Course in Miracles group. I look at them as bookends. You know, they go together beautifully. And I'm still in A Course in Miracles. When I left Course in Miracles to go to Course of Love, I just felt that there was a little bit too much intellectual trapping. That's all. And I don't feel that way. I mean, I had so much growth and wonderful experiences. It's really about the people who come to the group and the kind of relationships you make and the kind of sharing you do. This second ACAM group I'm in now is smaller, a little more intimate. And I tend to like that because people can share longer and deeper. If you have a large ACM group, our group at our Course in Miracles group at the Church of Truth is a huge group, and it's kind of like you don't really get to share because so many people want to share at the same time. So I find a small group very beneficial. On the other hand, I'd like to promote A Course of Love, and so this is like a great time to do it when we've finished the book and we're starting over, going through it our second time. And I think our understandings will be a lot greater of it. Okay, so I guess that's my share. I'm complete. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And hear from Bill.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Bill Heller. I'm the minister at Unity Church in Hemet, California, about an hour and a half away from Jim, as it turns out. I was introduced to A Course in Miracles in '91, and 6 months after that, some of my new friends introduced me to Unity. And as I read Fillmore, I found teaching so consistent with what I was getting from A Course in Miracles and experiencing there. I've been with both of those since and facilitating course groups since '93. As I mentioned a while ago, when I began asking, I was wondering if there was something next. It wasn't long before or after that before I was introduced to A Course of Love, and I fell in love with it immediately. So I'm all on board with both of them, continuing to use both of these as means to serve and means to contribute and share the material. Presently, I've got A Course of Love and A Course in Miracles group going Tuesdays and Wednesdays in the afternoons here in Pasadena. Some of the Course in Miracles group or individuals are not at all impressed or excited with A Course of Love. That's fine. They're still doing their work. So I'm working with those two groups, but in addition, I'm hooked up with a group out of New Jersey that rather than using Zoom, they're using free conference call. And they have calls throughout the week at many different times. I actually get up at 4:30 in the morning to get up with a morning call on the Course of Love, where a group just reads a section from the Course to start their day. And so they then have an intensive reading group on Wednesday afternoons. It begins at 8 o'clock their time, 5 o'clock mine. I just continue to see more and more opportunities of both of these, and for me now specifically more the Course of Love as a journey of what's unfolding, is what we've been looking for, what we're finding, what we're ready for. And I'm just grateful to be connecting with more and more people along the way. Years ago, I wrote a book. It was published in 2016 on unity in the Course in Miracles, showing the common thread there. So people were immediately asking, well, why don't you do something like that for A Course of Love and A Course in Miracles? Well, I think catching glimpses of that from many people contributing to that these days. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to hear the wonderful insights, the input that each of you have offered that I know I'll be using forward. We're on day 35 in the Course of Love group on Wednesdays. And it's a small group, but we're committed. Anyway, so I'm glad to just hook up with anyone interested in this journey. Thank you. I'm complete.
Well, thank you all for your sharing. It has been truly beautiful. And I think we are like a river that is growing in breadth and depth as we flow to the sea. So let's all enjoy the water. And we'll close our session now. But if those of you who would like to stay on for a few minutes, we may. But I know we're coming to the end of the session at 5:30. So,
Joan?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that Glenda Green's picture of Jesus behind you there?
Yes, it is. It's Glenda Green picture.
Did you get the channelings with Jesus from her, the tape set?
I have read her books. Yes.
Yes.
Deeply appreciate them.
I always thought Jesus looked a bit like Kid Costner in that picture.
I had the same experience. Oh, dear.
So I'm gonna stop the recording now. I think we're done. And then people, as Joan said, people can stick around and maybe we can share ideas on how this was and how it could be better. I'm gonna stop the recording.